Hello everyone and welcome to Devlog number 6, which is pretty much a continuation of the last developer log. It's mostly going to be art stuff, and let's dive right in. So let's start the developer log with the vertical slices that I made, and these I did at the end of January sometime. Now, these I designed because I wanted to get an idea of what my body design would look like in practice. Because of course, we've mostly been staring at like a gray body without any context or reference. It's kind of hard to judge whether or not we're going in the right direction with this. So I decided to come up with 3 designs that could be in the game theoretically. Of course, these are just mockups and a lot of things will change, but this gives you a general idea of what is possible with the one body design. So on the left, we kind of have like an early game character design with very simple clothing. She's wearing flat shoes, some jeans, and in terms of, upgrades, let's call them that, there isn't much going on. Now, the next 2 are kind of visions of an end game character, or at least more towards the end game, with this being kind of like a bimbo approach. And here we have a character with a thicker body frame wearing a bikini. So this kind of gives you an idea of what's possible with the body design that I've set up. Now, in between posting this and now, some time has passed, of course. So there was some feedback, and I decided to use this one as my reference point. Especially with this one, it became very obvious that the ankles were quite thin, and she felt a little bit large. And by that, I mean she felt tall. So here you can see that we've made her shorter, which right away feels a little bit better. But we still have to work on these ankles, so I also decided to make them larger. And one thing that I came to realize was the reason why these ankles are so thin feeling compared to when I'm just drawing the design is because I'm actually mostly looking at just the line art when I'm drawing this. And without the shading on the sides, the line art kind of felt fine. It was only once the shading came into the situation that the legs began to feel much thinner. And as I was working on this, I realized since I made her smaller, or at least shorter, I can actually upscale the art, which means that we get a more detailed image of her. Now you can see that the design is kind of broken here and there, but it's only for demonstration purposes. So now let's look at where I am actually at today. So this is the design that has been updated actually quite a few times, and as you can see, these ankles are much thicker. So some things that I've been working on, of course, as you can see, is the lighting on the body itself. I've been working hard on trying to bring the character more to life compared to the previous versions. There's a lot more shading and shadowing around the character. It feels a lot less flat, and it feels more that there's volume. Like you can see here, I still have to bring some more light into the chest area. But on the legs, you can see that there's much more light and dark play. This is the thickest version of the body. It still needs a little bit of work on the shading, but this is only something I started doing about a week ago, so this is pretty fresh still. And like I said before, it does take some time for me to process the art that I've made. This is a very different process from just making a drawing. Here I have to take a step back and look at it with fresh eyes very often. So the process tends to be much slower. I will draw and then I will not look at it for 2 days, and that will give me a clear head and a more objective perspective on the situation, whether I like it or not, whether it needs more work. And I feel like the only way to know that this body design is ready to really push it to its final design is when it can like stay out of my view for a week, and when I look at it again, I'm still happy with it. That's when I know that it is pretty much ready to go. And we're actually getting closer to that, because initially I would look at my designs and I would feel very frustrated, and I would go back to the drawing board, back to the sketchboard, try to come up with different designs. However, recently, it hasn't been that extreme. It's more like, oh, let's change a detail here. Let's play with the hips there. It's much smaller changes that I'm making. So I think we are actually getting quite close now. This is a fun little view that I also posted already on Patreon and Discord. Here you can see kind of the changes that happen between the hip sizes, and rather the difference between them. So the actual volume that you gain when you level up, so to speak. Of course, it will be completely your choice which body design you play with, but this gives you a good idea of how it looks on a technical level. Some interesting things to note is that the feet are always going to be the same, so they're not actually connected to the legs. And as you can see here, when you zoom in, you can see that line cut through the foot. And that is actually where it's disconnected. So I have to basically work and make the shading look good so you don't see that line. It's actually right here. It's not that easy to see. And especially when you zoom out, you pretty much don't see it anymore. We have a similar line actually on the chest, and you can see that right here. Of course, you never get that close to the artwork in the game itself, so these lines will just become invisible, especially once you are wearing clothes and stuff. That stuff will just vanish. But this is just a technical little detail that I wanted to show you how actually it works together. One more thing I want to show you is how the groin area works. So they all share the exact same area here, which is very crucial because otherwise none of the groin bits, I guess I'll call them for the YouTube video, will connect up. And of course, I don't want to draw art specifically for every single body thickness. So these all have to line up and work together. So I basically have this here as my safe zone for things to connect and line up. And I will show some pictures of that on Patreon, of course. Here I just want to show the differences between the feet. So these are our tall feet. And this you will, you won't really be able to choose what foot you have. It's rather the foot follows the shoe you choose to wear. So if you're wearing a heel, you're going to have the tall feet. And if you're not wearing any shoes, or you're wearing a sneaker or a sandal or like a cute slipper, you're going to be having the flat feet. That's kind of how it works. So this is one thing you don't really have a choice over. It's more like a consequence of the clothing design that you've chosen to wear. The next step for me is to start working on the raised arms, which was a very popular thing in the first version of the game, so it definitely shouldn't be missing in this version. As you can see, it's very rough still. I'm still playing whether or not I want these arms to be up high or rather lower. By that I mean like the angle of the upper arms, how they're actually tilted. So I'm still playing with that. I'm gonna see what happens. I'm gonna mess with that. You'll probably see updates from that as well very soon. And then, of course, I've started working on breasts and genitalia. Now, this is not something I will be showing on YouTube, but I'll probably already get banned for this. Anyway, yes, I am working on that now. The body design is in the state where I can start playing with that, and we're making some good progress. But I will not be showing this today. I will be showing you that in the future. So please look forward to that. Now, Vivi has been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes technical work for the game. These are things that you don't even think about when you do game design. They have chosen to integrate certain assets, third-party assets, into the workflow of the game. Now, a big part of these assets is that, of course, they all are standalone. So they have been working at making these assets work together. So we're working with Yarn Spinner, which is a system that allows you to create dialogues very easily. And that is, of course, important for me because I'm going to be writing that dialogue stuff. And they've also chosen to work with something called Text Animator. And that is the thing that animates the text, like I showed you in the last video with the jittering text and the color text. So these things, they don't necessarily work together. So Vivi has to go through extra steps to make sure that it's all very smooth and that there are no kinks in the cable, so to speak. They've also worked on smaller things like figuring out how the eyes are going to be moving. If you remember in my version of the game, I designed a little system for the character to be looking around. Vivi's taking that one step further, and you're actually going to be able to have cross eyes. And what's basically going to happen is your character will be able to look at things that are close by and far away, and the angle of the eyes actually changes depending on whether you're focusing on something close by or far away. So that is also something that Vivi has been playing with. Pretty cool stuff. It's very subtle, but it's actually these kinds of things that elevates it to a next level. They've also worked on soft masking, which is actually something that Unity doesn't really like. And a soft mask is basically a soft transition from a color to transparency, for example. So imagine like a fade, not a hard cut, but a fade. This is also something that you don't get for free in Unity. So Vivi has been figuring that out. And then finally, we've come to what we're actually looking at on screen, which is a shader problem that we've had for a while. And we've actually managed to fix this recently, which is very nice because it was giving us some issues, and especially me issues, because I was kind of counting on a technical approach to genitalia, for example, how they connect to the body. And as you can see here, we have two elements and they're laying on top of each other, and they both have the skin tone shader applied to them. And you can see the transition between should actually be from this color to that color, but it seems to go to a dark gray somehow. And that is a problem we've been having, and we couldn't really figure it out at first. We didn't quite understand why this was happening. Now we looked at a few possible problems that it could have been, or causes that it could have been. But we finally figured out that it was actually the shader itself, because at some point we thought that maybe have been the import settings or the filtering settings, because Unity does filter the image, or at least you have a lot of options for that. But it turned out to be the shader itself. And so we've managed to fix it, and this is the result. As you can see, this is how it should be. The color goes from one to the other in a very smooth way. And you have to remember, these are technically two different objects, right? So we could move this element around and you would still get your nice edge from one to the other color. And this seems very abstract, and I'm mostly showing it this way because otherwise we would not be able to show anything on YouTube. But trust me, this was a problem and it's been solved, and it's a really big headache that is now gone. So that is it for this devlog. It was a lot of art, but that's also nice to show. So for me, the next step is, of course, to keep working on the body. We're not done with it yet, but we're getting into the fun stuff, and that's nice to actually finally be past all the technical things we have to figure out, and it's finally feeling like a little bit more contextualized, and it's starting to look like a character actually, rather than like a gray alien. So that's it for this devlog. If you have any questions or suggestions or thoughts, please post a comment either on the YouTube comments or in the Discord. I will try to respond to everyone. Please also, I can't believe I'm saying this, but please like, and if you're interested in future videos, do subscribe. It does help out a lot. So that's very much appreciated. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.